Hi, everyone. Good morning. How's everybody doing? How's everyone going through this lockdown? I want to say hi to everyone joining us today. I know there are some people that we've already met. Hien from Cognita, hello. Hello to everyone from the Hassel team joining us today also. Hello to Sheila. Hello to Dong. Hello from our friends at Anfabi. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to run this series called our Webinar Wednesdays. And just before I start, allow me to introduce myself, talk a little bit about Talent View, and then we'll jump straight into our topic for today. All right. So, just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Anne Schwera. I'm the CEO of Talent View. Currently, Talent View operates in 3 countries. We are in the Philippines, Malaysia, and of course, Vietnam. And I've been in HR for about 15 years now. And I also wrote a book on recruitment called Rethink Recruitment, just helping organizations understand what the new world of HR and talent attraction is like. And as we go into the introduction for Talent View, I wanted to share that we're really all about employer branding. So what does this mean? Employer branding is how your people see you, your employees, your team members, the people you hire, how they see you. And a lot of times we are approached by organizations that tell us, I need help with the perception that my company has in the market. So we help them across 3 key areas. That's strategy, design, and technology. So today we're really going to focus on how we're perceived by our high potentials, how we're perceived by our leaders, because our topic for today is developing leaders who thrive amidst disruption. So obviously, because of this lockdown, our lives have really been disrupted. No more meetings, no more face-to-face interviews. Everything is done online. And we have to be ready. There's really no choice in that, right? Well, in fact, whether we're ready or not, we just have to face it. And hopefully today, as we go through this webinar, we'll be able to share insights, case studies, and just some frameworks to help guide you through developing your leaders. So at Talent View, we do work with a lot of organizations in the region, about 200 organizations, a mix of large local conglomerates and multinational organizations. So when we talk about our leadership model today, whatever we're sharing with you, we'll send you the slides. We're also going to put some resources that you can download. You'll see that in your screen come up. And whatever we're sharing with you is something that we already practice. And we've been developing leaders in organizations with these companies, helping them out across a structured model of developing leaders. So we'll start with this quote by John Maxwell, where he said, "A leader who produces other leaders multiplies their influences." This is so important. I think all of us, we know how important leadership is. We know that if you have the right managers in place, if you have the right leaders in place, you get more done. Isn't that correct? There's a lot of benefit to having good leaders in our organization. However, when we're working with companies, we're finding that not all of them have a structured leadership program. So we know that leaders are important. We know that good managers, good leaders make a difference in the company, but we also know that not everyone is focused on developing their leaders. So what we wanted to present today is a 3-step model to building your very own leadership pipeline. And maybe some of this you're already doing. Some of this is new to you. Please feel free to just take what you can and see how this applies to your organization. But even in lockdown, even in our own homes, we can work with our teams and start developing our leaders today. So just 3 parts: align, assess, and accelerate. We need to answer some critical questions. So the first one is, under align, what does the organization need? Are you looking to expand? Are you looking to bring new products into the market? Are you looking to strengthen your sales team? Depending on your objectives, you can now move on to the next question that says, what am I great at? So as an organization, you can take a look. What are the good things that you're doing? What are the things that you think are best practice so that you can get some sort of a benchmark going into this exercise. The third is what. So we ask our people, what do they love doing? What energizes me? Because sometimes we force somebody, for example, to be in a customer service role, but they hate to be in front of customers. They don't like dealing with. Okay, it's now good. I've reset everything. I'm checking with our producers in the back end if sound is better now. All right, so we're back on track. So these are the challenges we have, right, when we're running through everything online and through webinars. But it's a small price to pay to definitely stay safe. So we're happy to do it. All right, so we're going back to our leadership pipeline, and I've just talked about the critical questions that are important for you to start your 3-step process. So align, assess, and accelerate. So when we're talking about accelerate, after assessing individual strengths, after assessing our organization, we definitely want to know what the aspirations of people are when it comes to your company. Do they want to be a leader? Do they want to be a manager? Do they want to stay in a technical role and carry on with their technical aspect of the job? And the last is understanding what learning programs and what key skills they need to learn to move into their aspiration, to move to their dream. So if they dream of becoming a leader or a manager, what trainings, what programs can we provide, and what can they take in order for them to move up? All right? So internally, when you're building your leadership pipeline, we're breaking that down into more detail. So again, it's the same process of align, assess, and accelerate. But this time, we're giving you the very critical steps. And again, feel free to take notes. You may be doing some of these things already, but our slides are available to you. We will send this to you after the presentation. The very first is goal setting. If the organization's goal is to build their sales team, you now need to sit down with your team member and talk about these goals to make sure that there's an alignment, to make sure that it matches. with what they want to happen and what the company wants to happen, right? The next is communication planning and launch. You can't just do this without telling the employee that we've identified you as a potential leader in our company. You have to do this. They have to know that the company has a plan for them. They have to know that the company wants the best for them and wants to grow and work with them in the organization. You can't just surprise them and say, we're giving you all these trainings and we'll see. We'll see how it goes and, it depends. They have to know because learning, development, and growth, we believe at Talent View is always a two-part responsibility. The company has a responsibility to grow their employees, but team members, they also have a responsibility for their own growth. They need to want to grow, right? So that's a really critical ingredient. If somebody wants to get promoted, but they don't want to grow, they don't want to develop, they don't want to learn new things, there's no point. There's really no point to everything. So we have to communicate it. We have to launch our program. So a lot of companies, they do this in many different ways. If you're a graduate level, you see this, there's like a graduate trainee program, a GTP, if you will, a management trainee program that exposes you 2 or 3 years around the organization. And then there's also what we call the leadership development program. So you've got a lot of options. You see companies, they're branding their program so that people talk with pride about these programs and development plans in the organization. So those are the first 2 steps. When we go into the assess part, this is where we run assessment. You can't just tell a person, I think you're good at sales. I think you're bad at customer service. It will not work. You have to be able to use an assessment that really shows them their skills, that really tells them what things they need to improve and what they're good at. You need to ask their people. You need to ask the people around them, the people they work with, what their strengths and areas for development are. So you need to get a full picture of your team members for you to know how to map out their journey. And of course, very important to that as well is the 4th, which is interviewing them and getting feedback and giving feedback. So we want to know what's their plan. What are they looking at in their company? Do they want to be a sales director, a sales manager, or do they want to stay as like an individual sales person? We want to get these inputs. We want to know what they think about the leadership plan that we're planning for them, right? So all this comes by speaking with our team members, getting their input, and then we also give our plans and give our input to them. And then the next step, the 5th step, is mapping out their journey. So if we now know that they want to be a sales director and currently they are a sales manager, how do we move them there? How do we bring them from point A to point B? So we need to map out certain skills, certain areas of exposure. So maybe a sales director goes around the region, goes to different customers, works with different accounts for them to learn the difficulties of managing multiple accounts or big accounts. So we want to be able to take a look at different areas of learning, whether it's classroom training, whether it's providing them additional education, maybe taking up an MBA or taking up a master's in business or entrepreneurship. And also taking a look at what we can expose them to as part of their learning, right? And once you're able to map this journey, we need to check in and reflect. How is everything going? How are you? Are you able to adjust? Are you able to pick up new learnings from your education, from your exposure? We want to check on this because we're not sure. Some respond better than others, and some, we will discover that they're really just happy within their role. So these are the 6 areas where we sort of lay down the 6 factors for building your leadership pipeline. So do a self-reflection for your team also. I know that there are a lot of HR directors here. Can heads of people heads in your organization, take a look at where you are. Have you started mapping out your leadership journey as an organization? So let's go through them one by one in this session. We've created a 3-part checklist just for you to see that you've got everything covered. The first is goal setting. What are your organization's financial, customer, process, and learning goals? What are the things you want to focus on in the next 3 to 5 years? It all starts with this, because if you know your goals, you can help mold your leaders to achieve these goals. Next, what are your talent development initiatives, and how are you running and monitoring them? So this is very interesting. This is very tricky. A lot of organizations we work with, when we find them, when we meet them, typically they would just give trainings left and right depending on what they see. If they get an email that says, we have a training for communication skills, we have a training for people development, they'll simply forward that email to somebody in the department and say, I think you should attend this training, right? So typically that's how it goes. And what most companies do, even in L&D or learning and development, is what we call post and pray. They post all their trainings, and it's up to the person to pick which one is critical for me, which one is important for my development. So that's good. But that's really not a strategy. That's really more of posting and praying and hoping that our leaders develop themselves. So it's very important to map out your journey and align yourself across those goals. So again, if your goal is to increase, for example, your number of customers, how do you get to that? How do you build people that are customer oriented? How do you build people that are good at negotiation, that are good at developing others and managing conversations? So very crucial to your goal setting. And the last is using SMART. SMART is a well-established tool that you can use to plan and achieve your goals. So I'll give you a sample in the next slide. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. And let's take a look at a sample for goal number 1. If your goal is to target 100 million in sales in 6 months, how are you going to do that? Of course, your measure is sales. So 100 million, that's your target. I know in Vietnam, 100 million may be a bit small. That's hardly a target, right? So of course, this is just an example. Feel free to tweak this depending on the sales target of your organization. The third one is attainable. So when we talk about attainable, what do we need to teach our people for them to become closer to that target, to that sales target? So here we've put, maybe we need to teach them critical sales skills. We need to teach them negotiation skills. I worked with a company where they found out that, their salespeople are very good at presenting. But when it comes to negotiating, they have other competitors, they have other bidders. That's where the company loses. They're not good at negotiation. They're not good at bidding with other companies. So they wanted to really work on the negotiation skills of their salespeople. So that's the third. The next one is being realistic. Is your financial goal realistic? Are you coming from a good baseline? Or is this a number that you picked out in the air and just said, let's do this target this year? It has to come from data. It has to be very clear that you can reach this, that it is realistic for your people. And the last is time-bound. You have to put a time to it. So most people, when they're developing their learning plans, the initial starting part is usually about 6 months. But for more mature organizations, the minimum usually is 1 year. So they say at the end of 1 year, my team needs to be able to learn these skills, and they map that out. So throughout the course of 12 months or 1 year, they're able to write the journey and do a checklist, make sure that everybody is aligned and following those steps. So you notice the difference from post and pray. right? We're not just sharing with them all the learning programs and trainings that we get on email. We actually map out a journey for each and every individual that we put in our leadership pipeline. The next is communication planning and launch. Of course, we want to communicate this. So 3 questions you need to ask. How are you communicating changes in your learning and development? Do people even know that you have these programs in place? Because sometimes it's about instilling pride. People want to be in a company that's really helping them build themselves, develop themselves. So will classroom trainings be fully replaced by e-learning? Or will you do a blended option? Some are classroom training, some they do online, just like this webinar that we're doing right now. The second is, will there be adjustments in the targets or KPIs? So sometimes companies need to make that adjustment. People are learning, people are growing, so they know that it also takes time. So sometimes they make adjustments to the goals that they do to make it more realistic. And the third is, are you transparent? Transparent with your business goals and how each talent plays a part in achieving this goal to create realistic expectations for both parties. So I mentioned this earlier. People need to know. No surprises is very good here. So the more that it's clear to them what part they play in your company, the more they want to add value, the more they want to contribute, because they know that they're playing a very crucial role in meeting the goals of your organization. So that's communication, planning, and launch, right? I just want to share a quick statistic with you here. 91% of employees say that they are more effective if they can see how their individual goals fit into the big picture. 91%. It's practically everybody. So if you feel like your contribution, it doesn't matter, people don't feel engaged. They don't stay very long because they feel that they can just be replaced. They feel that their contributions don't even make a dent in your organization. So everyone values assurance. We want to assure our people, you matter, your contributions make a difference, right? All right, so we're going to the next piece, which is assess strengths and development gaps. So this one is very crucial. This is the baseline. If you don't know where you are in your current benchmark, you don't know where you're going, right? It will not help guide you. So take a look, for example, at other habits that individuals have. For example, they want to improve their weight. The very first thing they do is step on a measuring scale and check their weight. That's their baseline. And then from there, they eat healthier, they go to the gym, they work out, and then they weigh themselves again just to see if their weight has improved. So this is like that. This is your measure. This is your baseline check. You want to assess the strengths of your people currently, and you want to also assess their development gaps. So check if you have the following items. Number 1, updating of their tasks, updated tasks rather, and their KPIs, key performance indicators. You need to have this in place before you even roll out any development program. The next, competency framework with definitions and rubrics. So very critical. Do you know what you're measuring? What are you looking for? Are you looking for customer focus? Are you looking for people development? Are you looking for negotiation skills or innovation? Right? And then define success profiles for each role or task. So how do you know that they're moving up? How do you know that they have the right level of skills? So let me give you a clear example for this. Banking, right? When we talk of customer service in banking, I know we have some banking customers here in this webinar, or finance, right? When you ask a bank teller, what is customer service to you? A bank teller will say, I smile, I greet the customer, and I update their passbook or process their check very quickly. That's customer service. But if I ask a branch manager, what is customer service to you? The answer will be very different. A branch manager sits down with the customer, talks to them about their financial plan, and offers solutions to build that financial plan. That's customer service to them. So you want to be able to identify the different ways in which people define their competencies and achieve those milestones. Very critical. The second, assess your team's capability to continue business operations using these metrics. So if you have these behaviors in place, are they able to succeed with their current role? And are they able to set themselves up for success in the future roles? And the third is use competency-based assessments to allow the organization to objectively identify areas of strength and development. So sometimes you need a third party. Sometimes companies, they don't know or they're not 100% sure. So it's good to get input from many different sources as you build your competencies. And here's an example. World Economic Forum says these are the 6 intelligences to drive smart leadership. And we're again putting this resource in your screen. So please feel free to check out the link and see what the World Economic Forum says about these 6 intelligences. So the first is learning agility. In this day and age, they need to be very quick about their pickup. They need to make sure that, they're really strong at driving new information, getting new information, and processing that. Contextual intelligence, being able to listen to different perspectives from different sources, and then coming up with their own opinion, coming up with their own perspective, and contributing to the business. The third rather, is technological intelligence, or making use of and amplifying the power of rapidly emerging technologies. So how quick are they to learn Zoom? Because now we're all using Zoom for webinars. How quick are they to use Google Hangouts, even if they haven't tried it before? New technologies will always emerge, and those that win are those that can adapt very quickly to these new technologies, right? The fourth is grit. We know this. You've read the book or maybe you've seen it online. You need to be resilient. You need to power through in the face of adversity. So I'm not going to dwell a lot on that. Grit is just so important, especially for our leaders today. You can't have a leader that says, we've been doing this for 10 years. We'll just continue on because it's worked for 10 years, right? You can't do that. You have to change. The only constant thing is change. So we need leaders that have a lot of grit. Next is social and cultural IQ. So working with people, being able to collaborate with others, this is now a given. No man is an island, so every person needs to work well with others, more so our leaders. We can't have leaders that lock themselves up in their room and just say, I'm going to go out when I want to talk to my team. I'm going to go out when I want to talk to people. But I'm just going to stay in this room because it's comfortable. You can't have that if you're a leader. We need our leaders to be collaborating. We need our leaders to be talking to others because that's how you learn and that's how you instill growth. That's how you develop others. And the last is transformative. So the ability to create and arrive at a meaningful roadmap that will motivate people to take action and align their efforts. So strategic thinking, being able to share a plan, especially during this time of crisis, people are looking to their leaders to develop that plan and lay down that plan for them. So leaders have to be first. They have to be at the forefront of everything we are doing. And this is just one example. So if you have your own competencies already, that's good. You can use that. You can start your assessment with that. And you can now cluster people across what we call the 9-box methodology. So 9-box methodology talks about assessing people for their potential across your competencies and for their current performance across those competencies. So there will be some people that are high potential and also high performance. What does this mean? They're doing well in their job now, and you know that if you move them up, they will do even better. So they have the current performance at high, and they have high potential also to move up to other roles. So for example, Arya. So Arya is your a high performer and also high potential. You've also got people with maybe moderate performance but high potential, like people like Sam, or the opposite, high performance now but moderate potential for future roles. So again, if you notice, we've colored them as green. These three clusters, they're the people that you can start with in building your leadership pipeline. When we say leadership pipeline, it's getting that steady stream of leaders in your organization. I heard of a joke before where I asked somebody, so when do you think you're gonna get promoted? And and my friend was telling me, Ange, I think I'm only gonna get promoted if my boss leaves the company. There's no way I'm gonna get promoted. So I laughed at that, but he was serious. He was saying, in my company, the only way that I get promoted is if my boss resigns or if my boss dies, right? So it's it's really crazy because then you're now filling a leadership gap, and you now have a problem if people leave for whatever reason, right? For whatever reason they move to a different company, you're left with a leadership gap, and that you can't train your leaders only at that time. You have to train them even before that gap exists. You need to be able to be ready to move up people. We work with organizations where they have a two succession plan rule. What that means is that every manager has two people under them that they've identified that can replace them if they leave. So the leadership plan for all these people are already in place. They're running. So anytime that manager resigns, they can just pick from the two people that they've selected to move up to the next role. So that's how you know that you have a strong leadership pipeline. And in the 9 box methodology, that is what we're sharing with you, where this is how you select your leaders, those that have moderate to high potential and moderate to high performance to work with. Those that are in their yellow, these are the ones waiting in the wings. They are your second fielders. They're probably not the best right now, but they're the ones that they're, what we call core soldiers of the army. They're not bad at what they do. They keep everyone going. But at the moment, they're not the leaders. So when we're developing programs such as this, it will require high level of time, high level of effort, and high level of money, high level of resources. So you can't put this leadership program in place for all. You only have to identify a select few. And the way to do that would be with these 3 green areas first. And of course, those that are in the low potential, low performance will have to work something out differently for them. We either slowly move them into a different role or move them out of the organization because potential is low and performance is also low. All right? So after the 9 box, we move on to interview and feedback. Again, a 3-part checklist. Identify technology partners to help you run your virtual interviews. So I've placed this here so that, as we have this lockdown, we don't waste time. You can, in fact, identify your leaders and interview your leaders, potential managers during this period. Run engagement surveys and provide feedback on the results. It's your second piece. And summarize the results per group or function, but also create person-centric learning plans. So you can divide them. You can say, okay, my sales team, this will be their development plan. My customer service team, this will be their development plan. Finance, this is how it goes. But within each team, we also get to identify certain programs specific to each person. So then we do a very dynamic plan for development. All right? This is a sample within Talent View that we've shared. So take a look. Career aspirations and engagement. We try to ask our team members to have a firm grasp of how you envision your career goals in the company. And then we also ask them a survey. Let's talk about your current role. Let's talk about who you are and who you work with, right? Let's talk about your short-term career goals in the organization. So a lot of the questions we're able to ask our team members and just get them to a point where we get a baseline. So again, this is something that you can use and something you can start with even during this time. The next is mapping the journey. So we're coming down into the last stretch. We're now at the accelerate phase. So we've covered the align part, we've covered the assess part. It's now time to map our journey. And again, a 3-part checklist. Craft a development plan for the individual. So work with your team member and just get them to write what their development goals are, what they want to focus on within a given time period. The next is start the learning and development plan. So follow the 3 E's. I'll share a bit more about this. 3 E's, 70-20-10 model of learning. So don't worry, I have it on the next slide. We'll talk about this in more detail. And the last is identify possible obstacles to achieving your goals. So again, using SMART, setting the timeline, making sure that everything is measurable so that you can minimize the obstacles along the way. So when we talk about the 3 E's, we're talking about education, exposure, and experience. And again, it's 70-20-10. Classroom training, it's important, but it's not the most important. 70% actually comes from giving people more experience in the job that you want them to do. So if you want a person, a sales manager, for example, you want them to become a sales director. How do you do that? Expose them to the role of the sales director. Allow them to experience what it's like creating a national plan, creating a customer plan for a regional client. So whatever the sales role is doing, give them more experience in that role. So the next part is exposure. You want them to learn from the best. And sometimes the best are your current people in a certain role. So maybe sales managers can ride along with their sales directors and see how everything is going. What's it like running a meeting? What's it like running a call with a client? So this is just an example that we have for a pharmaceutical company that we're working with, where they map out what is the experience, exposure, and education that people need to take. So education can be in the form of classroom training or online training. So again, take a look, that's 10%. That should not be the most. The most should be the experience and exposure that they're going through and that they're getting at. Right? So these are the 3 things. And another way to look at it is what we call an IDP worksheet. IDP stands for Individual Development Plan. So every person in our company, for example, has what we call an IDP. What is their goal? What are the target competencies that they want to develop? What are the learning initiatives across the 3 E's? Experience, exposure, and education. And what are the measures of success? How do we know that we're successful at what we're doing, right? And the last, again, which helps us process the information the most, very, very important, is check and reflect on progress. So 3-part checklist again, build a culture of learning by making development conversations a part of your monthly team meetings. So just ask people, what did they learn? How was the training that they attended? How was the experience that they attended? Monitor progress, the second, and weekly accomplishment through your company's virtual social hall. So if you collaborate online, when we say virtual social hall, we simply mean, are you collaborating beyond face-to-face? Just check up on your team and ask them how their development is going. And the third is be ready to make adjustments as you see improvements. So this one is very crucial, right? So you can't stay stagnant, you can't stay still. If you see something is not working, then it's time for a change. All right, so those are the 6 steps to our leadership pipeline builder: goal setting, communication planning and launch, strengths and gaps assessment, interview and feedback, mapping your journey, and checking in and reflection. So again, I ask you to do your own reflection and just see where you are across these sticks. Have you started doing something, or is this something that you want to start building today? So I have a quote here that says, many of us intuitively know that leadership affects the bottom line. We know this. You can even see this in your CEO, right? If you have a strong CEO, you get to see results very quickly. So boiling down the research to its simplest terms, extraordinary leaders can double your profit. So any company, any business with the goal of building profit, of course, that's all of us, right? That's very important. Financial goals are important. And we want to sustain our business, there is no greater initiative than building your leaders today. So I hope that those 6 parts were something that you learned from and took a lot from. So I wanted to spend just the last 5 minutes talking to you about technologies that can help you start your leadership journey today. So technologies to support your development scale-up initiatives. I wanted to just reintroduce one of our partners. I know some of you in the call, like Hafel, are using our tools. So thank you very much. So just wanted to share with you that whatever we presented, you can do online. You can measure competencies online. You can roll out online assessments. And as you can see here, it's job role specific. It's something that you can do on a laptop or your phone. So any person, even in their lockdown, can run assessments and start their learning journey already. And you can launch your program digitally as well. So one example of a customer that we're working with is Coca-Cola. So if you look at Coca-Cola, again, this is an example. Some of the key traits they want to focus on: learning agility, emotional intelligence, tech savviness, critical thinking, innovation. So it's up to you what you want to focus on. And if you look at this, you can map it out across the competencies that Taligent already has. So again, let me make a plug here that in your resources section, there is a download of the Taligent Path Competency Framework. So you can take a look at the competencies in our framework and match that already to the competencies that you're currently using. And if you're able to do that, you're going to come up with a lot of different reports. So this one is automatic. Somebody takes the test and within a few seconds, you already have the results. And you can have results on competencies. You can check for emotional intelligence. You can check for grit. You can check for skills as well. You can check for their leadership potential. Take a look at the yellow report on the bottom left. We have the competencies to measure someone's leadership potential. So we do have customers that use a fast track method, wherein if they want to check the potential, they just use our report and they just use our test. And then they match that to their KPIs and their performance. And immediately they're able to fill their 9 box: performance and potential in one picture. Right? So again, you can do this for leaders as you're building your pipeline, but you can also do these tests if you're identifying high potential or maybe checking for graduates. You can use this for hiring as well. I know we have a lot of attendees here that are also in talent acquisition. So whatever I'm presenting to you, this is not just something that you can build for your leadership pipeline, but it's something that you can immediately use to test your talent and get things going still, even in this crisis, to continue your recruitment and test for the needed competencies that you're looking for. And the last is video interviews. So this one has been very interesting for us because more and more customers are reaching out to us and saying, we want to interview our people. So whether it's candidates or employees, they just leave questions. This is not Skype. This is not Zoom. You don't have to be on the other side. You just leave a question. Sample question could be, tell me the most difficult project you handled. How did you deal with it? What was the result? And the person, if they have a webcam, if they have a mobile phone, they just record themselves. And once they're done, you will be able to watch that recording and you'll be able to share notes. You'll be able to rate the person 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, all the way to 5 stars. And you can share these notes with other managers. You can share these notes with the hiring units. So it's up to you how you want to use the video interviews, but you will have all that on file. And it just helps you to get insights from your candidates, get insights from your employees, and from there identify who the best potential and best leaders are in your organization. So with that, I want to say thank you for joining us. That's the end of our webinar, and I've placed here my QR code. You can just take a picture with your mobile phone, and instantly we can connect on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, feel free to chat us up. We're also going to share with you at the end of my deck a feedback survey. We'll very much appreciate if you can let us know what you think. How were the slides? How were the insights and sharings that we did for today? And it will really go a long way to help us improve what we're doing. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope to see you in our future webinars. And when all this is over, hopefully also meet you face to face in Vietnam. So thank you. Xin chào anh.